I'm Rob.
And I'm Louie.
And this is the Shadow Legend virtual reality review by
Barefoot Gaming.
Louie, Shadow Legend is an RPG. Give me some of the basic story. Just break it down, no spoilers.
You are the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, and you're here to kick some butt.
Yeah, so that's the gist. You're going to fight really bad baddies. Again, we're staying away from spoiler territory. It's available on HTC Vive, it's available on Oculus Rift, it's available on Windows Mixed Reality, and movement styles.
You have snap turning, you have locomotion, you have teleportation, and you can climb.
And you can climb, absolutely, and that one does come into play a lot. There's actually a bunch of different mechanics that they've added to this game. So, like you'll probably see in the trailer, you see things like sharpening your blade, melting down metal, playing with your dog.
That's right. You can feed your dog some steaks, throw a stick for him.
Feed your horse.
That's right. There's carrots around.
So it is a role-playing game, which means that at certain points you'll get to make decisions that will affect how your character either gets how he gets better, right?
Yep.
Whether he's better with a bow or whether he's better with your sword, whether he's better with, and again, it includes melee as well as ranged and magic.
Not to mention increasing your health.
Yeah, for sure. Now, is there anything else we should talk about before we get to the review itself?
Yeah, there's runes that can be used for as special money. There's regular money, and then there's runes.
Yeah, so certain weapons you can only purchase with runes that you've gathered, and everything else is, and it's actually got a kind of interesting barter system, which we'll talk on again as we get to the review part of it. So the game goes for
$25 US
and $29 Canadian, so 25 pounds. And Louis, give me a pro on this. What was something you really enjoyed about this game?
I really enjoyed some of the not even fighting aspects of it, but just sharpening your blade, just mucking around in town.
Cooking up a steak?
Cooking up a steak. You can burn the steak if you cook it for too long. I thought that was hilarious.
Pro I'm going to list is the fact that it's made by an independent studio, so it's not like a large group, which most VR games are kind of sitting at that level right now. And the game doesn't look bad. Like, I would say the graphics are quite all right for virtual reality. Pro on graphics. Louis, give me another pro.
I really enjoyed the combat in that when you tried to block a hit, if there was a sword coming your way and you blocked it, it would actually block in game. Some games, it's not so great. This one, it seemed pretty solid for blocking melee and also doing damage when you actually cut through the enemy's defenses.
Another pro I'm going to say is voice acting. I thought the voice acting was well done. Louis, what else?
Another cool feature is you can actually, instead of just choosing which speech you want to say, if you want to activate it, you can actually tell the game, you can kind of read your lines as your character would. I've never done that in a game before.
So yeah,
that was pretty cool.
It has voice recognition, but it's not really broad. Like, it'll only be, again, available on, you have to read a script, like Louis was saying. Can you think of any more pros that you really want to stand out?
Maybe just that the environment's constantly changed, and I always enjoy that in a game. You never want it to just be the same thing over and over.
Not just overworld or just tunnels or just whatever.
Yeah.
That is a good point. The game does feature a couple of different kinds of environments. So for pros, give me a con. Single con.
One con is the fighting seemed slow. You hit him, and then he tried to hit you and you'd block it. And then you hit him, and then he'd try to hit you. And it was kind of that pace.
And the problem is that doesn't just happen in combat against basic enemies. You'll also have that with some of the bosses. Now, the game does feature a couple of bosses. And again, without doing spoilers, one of the bosses in particular, it is just trading.
Yep.
Their turn, your turn, their turn, your turn, their turn, your turn, and it goes on and on and on. And I'm not saying that I know the fix for this. I'm sure it's very frustrating being a game developer and saying, how do we make combat interesting, right? Because you want to be able to parry, but the problem with this parry style is, I mean, you don't just want to wiggle, right?
Yep.
That's something that's very frustrating. It takes all the fun out of a game. If you can wiggle and win, that's boring.
Yeah.
So they've kind of got around that. You could technically still wiggle and probably beat most of them, but once you start wearing down an opponent, armor will start falling off, and you can cut off either arm or cut off the head or cut them off of the torso, but it's still taking turns. They go, you block. You go, you hit. And it will measure how hard you hit, so there's that, to a degree, right? A light hit will register light, and just a slight movement of the arm will do full. Louis, give me another con if you can think of one.
I would occasionally get trapped inside some walls, and it would go all black. I couldn't see inside the wall. I couldn't see inside the crates or anything, and I had a hard time getting out of them. I would eventually get out. No harm done. But it would be nice if the walls were a little bit more solid, in that it would actually just push back a little bit.
Which brings me to one of my cons, is the game is still a little bit glitchy. Now, it's not really, really bad, it's not unbreakable bad, but those runes that you have to get, they'll fall through the ceiling and they'll disappear into nothing, so that you aren't able to get them in multiple spots. And the game isn't early access anymore, and I'm sure like the developer will probably still try to keep bug fixing this, but there are still quite a few spots like that, and I'm not going to hit them hard for this, but it is something that you have to know going into it. Any other cons?
No, not that I can think of.
Another point that has to get made here is all that really cool stuff that we talked about, all the smithy work and sharpening your sword and making iron ingots and feeding your dog and your horse, and that only happens at the very beginning. So within 10 minutes, you will have gotten to experience it, and that's it. It's not gonna happen again. Aside from cooking, you'll get a couple of opportunities to cook again, but based on the length of the game, I guess I understand that it doesn't really work. Just don't expect to have that level of involvement throughout the entire game. The last con I'm going to list is the fact that Louis mentioned you do get to make some of your own decisions in the game, and it doesn't really feel like those decisions matter. Now, you can choose what you're going to send, you know, like the messenger bird to carry away, but the message that comes back, as far as we can tell, it doesn't actually matter what you're choosing. When they ask you a question, you can respond. It feels like, yeah, this is me actually getting a choice, and affecting it doesn't. So give me a score out of 5, Louis. How are you sitting this game, and why in the end?
I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 5. There were some weapons that we should have been able to purchase early on, and we couldn't because we hadn't collected enough runes, and we spent a lot of time just looking around, looking for runes, and we'd find them. And, you know, they'd be high up on a roof, and we'd shoot them down, and happy as, you know, that dog eating a steak, and we'd go over to where they fell, gone, no rune. And we couldn't buy the crossbow and a couple other things.
Just because the runes were glitched out of the game. Now, I'm not going to score this as high. Louis touched on the fact that we spent a fair amount of time in the game. 4.5 hours is kind of, if you're looking for all the runes as you're going along, is probably a realistic expectation, which is long enough for what they're asking, as far as I'm concerned. In an RPG, you're getting some story, etc., etc. But I am only going to sit at about a 2.75, and for me, the biggest hit was the combat. The combat looks neat. I like the fact that you can lop off heads and arms and stuff when it's over, but it feels monotonous. You know, like they'll power up your staff when you're doing like magic attacks, but then they make it take way longer to fire. That's fine, but everything just feels a little monotonous on the combat side. This never means that you shouldn't buy the game that we're recommending or not recommending. 2.75 is in the middle. All we always want to do is make sure that you go into this educated, and if that's what we've done at the end, fantastic. On that note, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like if you like the video, comment and share. We love it when you share. If you have any questions, as always, we look in our comments and we will do our best to help you out. We're out of here. Talk to you later.
Bye.
See ya.